Hi everyone, my name is Mai Nguyen from Aussizz Group. Today I would like to discuss with you about student visa and AAT. So a lot of you, I believe, have been graduating and applying for your 485 visa, the graduate visa, and a few of you would need to also extend your student visa, perhaps because you've probably failed a unit or two, and so you need to apply for student visa extension application. Hopefully you do not meet the situation where if you applied for a visa, for the extension of student visa, or if you applied for any other visa, after a couple of months or so, instead of being granted the visa, you end up receiving an immigration refusal notification in your email. That would be quite a little bit of a nightmare for you, and so it could be quite worrisome. But we're here to help you in that regard. So do reach out to Aussizz Group in any of our branches in Australia, in Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Queensland, and we're here to help you. Okay, today I want to specifically talk to you about the AAT for student visa. So the AAT is the Administrative Appeals Tribunal for students or applicants who applied for their student visa, like for an extension of a student visa. And when you receive in your email immigration refusal notification, usually, mainly it's because of the GT component, that you failed to convince the case officer from immigration that you are a genuine applicant for the student visa application. Okay, and it could be various reasons, and they based upon the assessment upon the main criteria would be that you showed that financial capacity documents, or else that your intention to seek a student visa extension because you probably have failed a few units, and or else the choice of study, the choice of courses that you studied is still considered to be acceptable and at the AQUIF level that you must abide to and adhere to. Now, once you receive the notification, let's say today, that you've been refused the student visa, you have within 21 days to appeal to the AAT, appeal to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Okay, so we have to lodge an application online to the AAT, pay their fees, and once you do that, you are practically saved in a sense that within the 21 days that you've been given, you would protect, kind of thing, your bridging visa A, that allows you to lawfully, to be able to stay in Australia lawfully while you wait for the decision to come out from the AAT later on. If I can tell you that the AAT currently, and has always been, backlogged with so many applications coming through to them, that it could be that you will not need to worry about facing the AAT or going to the AAT hearing anytime soon. You'd be able to buy yourself more time to finish your course of study, or else, still continue with study. And it could take up to 6 months, 9 months, a year, or a year and a half nowadays before AAT reaches your application, opens up the file, looks through it, and then invites you sooner or later to attend an AAT hearing. Okay, so when you do attend the hearing, you need to know that the member at the AAT are not, let's say, immigration's friend. They're independent of immigration. So long as you have continued to study, that you can easily prove that you are still a genuine student, you have every chance possible to win at the AAT. For the AAT member to provide you with a decision that's favourable to you, a decision that could say that they would want to remit the decision back to immigration to reconsider, for immigration to reconsider their decision to refuse your student visa application. The AAT has the authority to look at old documents and also new documents, fresh documents. Let's say at the time when you apply for your student visa application for the extension of it, you provided documents of your academic transcripts, your financial capacity documents, and your OSHC extension, all that. Now, and then for some reason you had your student visa application refused. So it could have been now, to this day, after a year or so, the documents are now old, yeah? And so those documents that you provided to immigration back then may not be as useful and helpful to you for the AAT purposes now. So when AAT opens your file and looks into, they would be willing to still wait or ask for more documents from you, fresh documents, new documents, to help contribute to prove that you are still a genuine student. So which means that the fresh documents would be the new academic transcripts to prove that you have been studying all this time. So what do? You go back to the school, the college or university, you ask to get a printout of the most recent academic transcript to prove, and even attendance notice from the college, or to prove that you have been consistently going to school and that you're passing all your units and you're progressing well with your studies. That's one way of proving that you are still a genuine student. Because if it can be proven that you are a genuine student, AAT will have every ammunition at their disposal to make a favourable decision for you, okay? So, so that's one aspect of that. If I could talk to you further, the experience of having to go to the AAT for you to know a little bit of how it works. So once you've been invited to go to the AAT hearing that they've scheduled a time for you, you have the right to request for an interpreter, okay, for your language that you need help with. And it's free of charge. So they'll book the interpreter for you, and the interpreter will be there on the day at the specified time to assist you. I do tend to encourage my clients to, if they feel any slight chance that are uneasy or not confident in speaking English fluently, or they should always opt to book for the interpreter, because it's already free of charge anyway. But at the same time, the interpreter will always be there, and at any time that you can still, you can still talk directly to the member, the AAT member, and at any time you feel that you need more clarification, you don't understand certain concepts, you can always then reach out to the interpreter, and then they can jump in and interpret for you. So to buy you more time to compose yourself, to think in your head what is the best way to answer the question that the AAT member has asked you. Okay. So let's say you attend a hearing. So we go into this room, and usually there would be up to 3 different applicants who have received refusal notice from immigration about the student visa. And so you'd be lumped into the room with 2 other applicants from different agencies, whatever. So you wait your turn. So the ideal situation would be, if it's going to be your first time attending the AAT, you would hope that you'd be the second or the last person to speak to the AAT member there, because of that situation, you have the luxury of seeing the first person go up and being drilled by the AAT member, because it's a standard number of questions that the member would be asking the applicant, the student. So you have the luxury of actually witnessing for the first time how the questions will be asked, and what answers would usually be provided. Before we go into that further, I need to mention that you'll need to swear that whatever you say is the truth. So if you are religious, there are the Quran, the Bible, there's a holy book as well for certain people with a different religious background. Or you can just do an affirmation where you affirm that whatever you're saying is the truth. That has to be done before you start your hearing with the AAT member. Okay. So you really want to show your best self to the member on the day. So please dress appropriately, neat and tidy and formally, but just look confident and know what you're doing. So prepare yourself, okay, for the meeting. for the hearing. So if you go through to us and you become my client, I would be able to prep you a couple of days beforehand so that to prepare you mentally, and so that you will be able to attend the hearing in a more confident manner. You know exactly what is expected of you, okay? So the questions that they would ask, the member would ask, would mainly deal with wanting to know about your background from back home. Before you came over to Australia, what did you study? Did you work? And then when you first came to Australia to study, what did you study? And most of the times when you face the AATs, because a lot of times you would be would have changed course along the way, and so they want to know the reasons why you changed course. Now, bear in mind that on a student visa, you are an international student. You have every right to change your mind at any time. When you come over to study in Australia, you don't like that particular course. So it's not that you must stick to that same course from the first day that you come into Australia. You have to stick to the end, okay? Because I see that you are a full fee paying student. You're not begging for free education in Australia, okay? It's a lot of money to invest into the country. And so with that, you have every right, if you choose to change your mind at any time. But then you need to know the legal aspect of the law about how immigration works. So you need to know that you need to study at least 6 months of your principal course before you could, be able to change course or change education provider. So long as you stick to that, then you can study whatever you like, but stick to the same ACWIF level that you started with in the first place. So these kind of nitty-gritty, if you don't know for sure, please book an appointment to see one of our education consultants here at Aussizz Group. They're here willing and able to consult you and explain to you in more detail to keep you from breaching your student visa condition, okay? So with that, let's get back to the actual hearing itself. The member would ask you about your background history back home, over here, the reasons why you have come to this stage now where you had your student visa application refused. A lot of times it's because of GTE component, because the immigration department did not believe that you were that student visa application that you had applied for in the past, basing upon the fact that they may think that you have downgraded your ACWIF level. Let's say you came over on to study a master's course, and then you decided not to continue with your master's studies, but then you were convinced from your friends that you wanted to become a chef. So you wanted to change out, and then you applied to study commercial cookery courses and hospitality management. And then, so long as you have stuck to the requirements that even if you downgraded yourself to study commercial cookery at the certificate level, let's say at the certificate 3, and then moving up to cert 4 in commercial cookery, and then diploma hospitality. But it's crucial that you need to know that you still need to obtain a CEWE for a bachelor's course, at least that, to maintain a level of at the higher education sector, that the CEWE at the bachelor's level at least, to keep yourself relatively safe. But even so, while you're studying, and then when your visa is starting to expire and you need to extend your student visa, this is when the risk comes along, where if the case officer of the day is a difficult person, they will penalise you because they say, well, why did you come over on a master's course and you study and then you change out and you lowered your ACWIF level and you went down to a certificate 3 level? And so that's easy enough for them to decide to refuse your student visa application, okay? So that's a usual kind of story that we face on a general basis for a lot of students out there. So let's say, so this is a situation, a typical situation like this, and you come to reach the stage where you're now at the AAT hearing and you're speaking to the AAT member. Now, we call the representative from AAT, the person there, as member. You don't need to call them sir or madam, but you just address them as member, okay? So then, once they've clarified your historical, your history, immigration status and that, you need to know that they have full access, the AAT, the member, have full access to the PRISM, all the files that immigration has on your name, and they have access to that. So they would bring along a full folder's worth of your details of when you first came over, which CUE was provided to you by the school, and any time whether you had your CUE cancelled or you didn't attend enough times and there were marks upon your history status and educational side of it. The AAT member will know everything. So just keep in mind, do not think to lie about anything to them, because they will catch on very quickly, okay? So they have access to the PRISM documents about the CUEs and all that, so they know the progression of what you have been doing while in Australia. The member will ask you if you've been working here, and also about the expenses that you incur while living in Australia. So they're quite detailed. They'll ask you, like, per week, how much do you pay in rent, your utility bills, all that. These kind of questions enables them to draw up a story or a picture for them to see more clearly of who you are as a student, and whether you still, in their eyes, can be seen as still a genuine student. Now, to be a genuine student, you need to know that you need to satisfy the whole concept of holding a student visa or being a student in Australia internationally. You only can stay here temporarily. Your main goal or your main kind of obligation is to study full time. You know, you must, on a student visa, you know your condition, your visa conditions is that you must study full time and can only work part time. So if you can show proof that you adhere to these conditions, then there's every chance you will be successful at the AAT, okay? Now, if I can give you an idea that the member, you know, sometimes I come across a lot of students going to the AAT who come to me as my client, and a lot of times I can understand that life happens. You probably never intended to ever think of creating in such a circumstance that you end up having your student visa refused or even cancelled while you're in Australia, okay? I'm sure that's never your intention in the first place. But we all know that things happen along the way. Life changes things, and there could be family issues that a family member may have passed away. That family member could be your mum or dad, and he could be the main breadwinner for the family, and he or she would be the person who would normally tend to send money to you to help pay for your tuition fees, let's say. Or either if they haven't passed away, or they're they're unhealthy, they're frail, they could not contribute to your financial assistance to help to pay for your living costs in Australia and your tuition fees and all that. So it would have put a lot of strain upon you as a student, an international student living in Australia. The living cost in Australia is very high. I know that. We all know that. And the tuition fee seems to be just increasing every few months to like every year, it seems. And immigration knows that, and AAT knows that as well. The beauty of AAT is they're willing to consider all these more so than the Immigration Department. The Immigration Department sticks to their policies, to the law. If you breach any of the policies or the law itself, then they have every right to use your student visa application, yeah? But with the AAT, there's more room for the member, and they want to. Seriously, they do want to. They, again, I emphasize the truth that AAT is not immigration's friend, okay? So you have every chance, the highest chance to if you have enough merits, yeah, to prove that you are a genuine student, they will definitely save you. They will definitely have the authority to save you, okay? And to tell immigration to grant you the student visa back, all right? So keep that in mind. So there are a few situations where you may get your student visa application refused. One example could be that you did not provide financial documents that is according to the policies required from immigration. You know that, especially students coming from level 3 countries, the high-risk countries, you need to always think of, if you need to apply for student visa extension, you have to provide financial capacity documents. Like if you do not have your own funds in your own bank account, that is for you to cover yourself for 1 full year, and living costs for 1 full year to show to immigration, then you need to provide financial sponsor documents from your family members like mum and dad, uncle, any distant relative, any close friend. Now, talking about this kind of situation, immigration, a couple of years back, have opened the capacity for the wider public to be potentially financial sponsors for you. So now it could be literally your next door neighbor who could potentially provide financial sponsorship for you, and it could easily, it could be still accepted, yeah. But the problem you may face in this regard is it's too distant away from your close relationship, as opposed to, let's say, your mom or your dad or your brother, sister, uncle. Then you might have a problem trying to prove genuinely that the financial sponsor genuinely allows you to access their funds to help you with paying with your tuition fees or your living costs in Australia. And so sometimes, when you all know that, yeah, I could just get my family friend to provide documents, and so they do. They get a next door neighbor or a family friend, even from a family friend from India, let's say, and just provide the bank statement, an affidavit, and proof of income from that sponsor, and to say that, this is our family friend, and he's willing to sponsor me. But then what happens, right, that sometimes you get a very difficult case officer from immigration. They're quite nitpicky. So they use this distance that's not close, like this family friend is not as close as your mom or your dad or your brother, uncle, sister. So they'll use this against you and say, well, we don't believe that this family friend is a genuine kind of sponsor, because generally we don't believe that you have genuine access to their funds from their bank account statement from India. And so what is increasingly can be seen happening to the students who apply for the student visa extension, they thought they had it in the bag. They thought that, well, that's what they've got, a sponsor, that's it, and they would get their student visa granted. Unfortunately, no. Instead, they received an immigration refusal notification. And there was a reason, because the case officer of the day from immigration did not believe that the applicant can have genuine access to the funds from that family friend. Okay, so now we go to the AAT with that matter, and recently I found that AAT is still very helpful in terms of so long as right now, it's been probably a year and a half now that you've been waiting to go to the AAT hearing, and they open the file, they've invited you to the hearing, and so now what the member wants to see now is currently, are you still able to show financial documents to prove that you have the financial capacity to continue to study in Australia? Okay, so you could provide new documents, fresh documents. Okay, so preferably it should be the financial sponsor from the past, yeah, who provided their documentations for you to apply for your student visa. Okay, so we should go back to the same person and get them to revise their bank statement, provide the new bank statement, new affidavit, new source of income that they can income coming through. The AAT member would generally accept this, as well as a current COE that you would have to show that you're currently studying. Okay, so that they would have every chance to tell immigration to reconsider their decision to refuse your student visa application. In this regard, usually immigration will listen to AAT, and then within 1 to 2 months, they will grant you the student visa. Okay? Now, you need to bear in mind that when you go to the AAT, okay, the main thing you need to concern yourself with mainly is you're on, when you first came over, what visa did you apply and what visa were you granted? It was a student visa, okay? So there should be no excuse that while you were studying and the visa, you studied and then if you need to apply for a student visa extension, and then you waited and then they refused your student visa application. If you went to the AAT, you applied to AAT, you should still continue to study, okay, while you're waiting to go to the AAT hearing, all right? So when we go to the AAT hearing, the expectation is you should have a current COE in your possession on the day itself to show to the member that you are still a genuine student, that you've been studying all this time, okay? Now, if you do not show a current COE on the day itself when you see the member at the AAT, then how can you think that the member can even start to want to save you at the hearing, okay? Because it's all about showing the genuineness that you are still studying and that you're a genuine student. So I strongly want to emphasize to you the crucialness that if you want to have any chance to win the AAT, you should not stop studying, okay? Some people decide that once they had received the immigration refusal notice and then they apply for the AAT, that they can afford to just stop studying. In a sense, if you stop studying, nothing's going to happen to you immediately, because you know that once you apply within the 21 days that is allowed to you to apply to AAT, right? If you do that within 21 days, then your matter is now with the AAT. So practically immigration will leave you alone for the time being, okay? So, but that doesn't mean that you should stop studying, because if you stop studying, sooner or later the college will find out they're chasing you for the tuition fees, you don't pay, you don't attend classes, they will cancel your COE. When they do that, it will automatically show up in PRISM online. Immigration will know of it, but nothing will happen to you because your matter's with the AAT. So when you go to the AAT, the member have access to the PRISM documents and they realise that your COE has been cancelled from before. And if you don't show a new COE, then there's nothing to show proof that you are considered. If that is the case, you might not, you'd rather not go to the AAT hearing at all on the day and just decide to just pack up your bags and leave, okay? So keep that in mind. So I want to summarize in a way for you to easily understand. The AAT is, will allow you to buy yourself more time, to prove yourself, if you want to, that you are still a genuine student. And the only way to help you to prove that is to continue to study, okay? Now, after the AAT, because the AAT is like a merits review tribunal that would look at the merits. If they believe that you are still a genuine student, they will help you to get your student visa. Now let's say different students have different situations, and if one of the situations needs that you need to buy more time to stay in Australia longer for whatever reason, either that you have applied for another visa and you're waiting for the results of that, or you want to pursue PR pathways, so you need to find enough points to apply for the skilled migration visas. Then if you need to buy more time, even after the AAT, what if you get an unfavourable decision from the member at the AAT? It's still not the end of the world. There's still one more chance to pursue a merits review, and that's with the Federal Circuit Court, the FCC, okay? So that would buy you a little bit more time, but we'll talk about that another day, okay? So hopefully today has been a little bit of a constructive kind of information kind of seminar that I've provided to you about the AAT. Pardon me. If you've got any questions, I welcome you to inbox or make comments, and I'll be able to reply to your comments, or else you can try to email to me and or try to call in and make contact with the office. Make an appointment to see me. I'm here to help you anytime.